Welcome in, everyone. Thank you for tuning into the Dynasty Force podcast. Here with you, as always, on this Wednesday. It is, I keep losing the date. As soon as the podcast starts, May 19th, 2021, back with you again. Here, as always, with my main guy, my main host, my main man himself, Billy Briz, at Getting Bills on Twitter. How's it going, buddy?
It's going pretty well, playoff season and the middle of baseball season. Not really watching baseball, but betting on it. But I'm pretty excited for the Sixers to make their championship run. Hopefully I see you, Allison, and the baby coming down Broad Street with us as we're all partying with the Sixers winning the championship for the 2021 season.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, buddy. I feel like it's going to be Nets and Sixers in the Eastern Conference Finals, but we'll just have to see how that one plays out, because the Nets, I feel like if Kyrie, Harden, and Durant are all healthy, then it'll make life very difficult for the Sixers. So even
Chemistry
though
goes a long way, Rob. Doing podcasts and stuff like that, how big and important chemistry is to just the way things go and to
I agree.
be more successful. And the reasons why I'm back in the Sixers this year, not only because they're my home team, we just have the best starting five lineup point wise, and everybody's healthy right now. And this is the healthiest that Embiid has ever gone through a season, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he has, and very close. Had he played like the full season, you could make an argument for him to be the MVP. But regardless, it's a good season, and like I said, I think they'll make an Eastern Conference Finals run at the very least. So maybe beyond that, we'll have to see how that plays out. Sadly, my Raptors have reverted back to little baby Raptor form after Kawhi left. And I know you used to harp on me and the team and us for not being as good as we could be, especially come playoff time.
And you already know I was a big DeMar DeRozan fan.
I was too. I don't know if I might have cried when he got traded, because I didn't like the trade at first, because I knew Golden State was, when healthy, would have won the championship without question. Back then, Steph, Clay, KD, Draymond, all nuts. But then KD got hurt, and that changed everything. So,
were you guys talking about LeBron James' son, DeMar DeRozan?
We were talking about my glory days as a Raptors fan that no longer exist.
That's hilarious.
Speaking of, Trey Tyndall at FF Superflex Guru, who is a Lakers fan, they are playing tonight against the Golden State Warriors. That'll be a fun game.
Yeah, let me just tell you, I already threw down some money on them, Billy. Let me know what you think about this parlay I got going on. Lakers money line, LeBron and Andrew Wiggins to have at least 3 steals combined, AD and Drummond to have at least 3 blocks combined, and Schroeder to score 12 points.
I like it, but the only part that might fuck you up is Andrew Wiggins. He's a bum. My parlay of the day is going to be the LA Lakers money line with the St. Louis Cardinals money line if that game doesn't get rained out. Plus 109 odds. Pretty good odds. That's the play of the day right there. And if you're really feeling fishy, take the San Antonio Spurs money line.
I'm going to stay away. It's been pouring down the past 2 days in Kansas, so I wouldn't be surprised if it gets rained out if the storm's moving that way. So,
yeah, I placed that bet last night, so I didn't really look at weather.
Come back to bite you. On this episode today, we have the first episode of a little series that we're going to have, which is going to be Dynasty Rankings. And in the past on this show, we have basically done all of our rankings reviews in one episode, but I think it would be smart for us, at least now, to break it down a lot more and talk about each player individually so that we can really, each position individually so that we can really break it down and, give you good analysis on how we view these players. So we're going to do running backs this week. Next week, we'll do wide receivers. And then the week after, we'll combine quarterbacks and tight ends into one episode since they're both going to be a little smaller than those. Is there any news that you guys want to mention? Any jersey change numbers that you guys think are really cool that you want to point out?
The whole Cardinals team, I feel like, is going to be single digits. It's going to be.
Has Hopkins changed?
No, not yet. I think he said that if any. Wait, what's his college number? I think
that's
it's
a good question.
Digits because I think I saw.
I think it was 2. I want to say it was 2.
I saw something that said he's thinking about changing to his old college number, and I can't remember if it's single digits or not.
Checking that. It was 6 in college, so that could change. I know he's number 10 right now, and I feel like 10 looks good on him. I'd keep that. Who do I want to mention? I know you guys have seen the Jamar Chase pictures in OTAs. He looks really good in the number 1. Why are you shaking your head, Trey?
I haven't seen the pictures.
Oh, why? Go. I think I saw it on the NFL's Instagram, not even specific to the Bengals. But you could check it out there. He does look very fresh in the number 1. I will say that. And the Bengals have new jerseys, so it looks really good. Kyle Pitts out here rocking number 8 as a tight end. That's going to be cool. Bill, any ones you want to mention? I know you love Devontae Smith and his number 6, right?
To be honest with you, I don't really look at any of that, but the one that I did see that kind of caught my eye is my boy Trey Lance, man. He's been all over ESPN this last week.
Did you see the video about the wide receiver they have getting beat off the line so bad that the
corner.
Trey Lance threw the ball, and everyone's like, "Well, look at Trey Lance thrown into cover." I'm like, dude, that's the drill. Like, what are you supposed to do? Not throw the ball? Like,
it's simps out here who don't know enough about OTAs and camp and how things are supposed to go. But yeah, I mean, besides that, it's kind of a slow point in the NFL season. Teams are, like I said, OTAs, voluntary for teams. I know Zach Ertz didn't show up to Eagles OTAs, so that could mean post June 1st, a trade still on the table for him. Still rumors about a Julio Jones trade for the Falcons, but that would happen post June 1st as well. So we'll wait and see how that goes. What hat is that? I can't see. I thought it was a football hat, so now I'm not interested anymore.
What about this?
Yeah, still not interested. Not football. Doesn't matter, buddy. Let's get into these running back rankings, which I'm actually very interested to dive into. As you can see on the screen, I mean, we're keeping it simple here with Google Sheets. Nice way to kind of, go through and share our rankings between each other. This far side column is my rankings. This middle or second row column will be Billy's. Third row is going to be Trey's, and fourth row is going to be consensus. So obviously we combined all of our rankings together into one list. So I guess I'll kind of go down the consensus list, and then I'll highlight where we each have these players. We could talk about that. And I mean, it's very interesting. The thing that stood out to me, like, okay, I guess that could be a nice little quick question. What stood out the most when you saw like the other guys' rankings. Not necessarily the consensus, but when you took a look at, it doesn't have to be, just what when you looked at both mine and Billy's, Trey, what stood out to you? And Billy, when you looked at mine and Trey's, what kind of stood out to you? I'll go first here. Obviously, I said this in the chat earlier too. Billy's ranking of second-year running backs, especially DeAndre Swift and Cam Akers being 5 and 6, that really stood out to me. Which I'm not saying it's bad. I don't believe they're bad, but I definitely think it's bold because you don't see anyone ranking them that high. And like I'm sure there's an argument for it, and I'm ready to hear about that argument. We'll get into that when we get into the consensus rankings. But Trey, anything that stood out when you looked at our rankings?
Just the Derrick Henry slander, and I'm tired of it.
I know. I didn't know where to rank him. It's like that every year.
It's you, Billy, but Rob doesn't have him in his top 5. He has him at number 8. I mean, you gotta
8's not bad though.
King Henry. You gotta respect King Henry. I got him at number 5, and I was honestly gonna put him above JT, but I was like, nah. If I do that, people will think I'm trolling. That's not how I feel though.
8's not bad.
Redraft, I would probably have him higher, but this is Dynasty. I don't know if I want to be. Derrick Henry's a pick that you kind of fell into last year just for value.
I just think he has at least 3 years left of RB1 activity. Everyone always like, oh, he's old, he's 27. Yeah, but at the same time, touch-wise, I would say he's probably like a 25-year-old back. DeMarco Murray was there his first couple of years and really pissed off a lot of people because us Dynasty owners drafted Derrick Henry high, and we didn't even get to use him until his 3rd year. And a lot of people just see him as, oh, no, that's this guy that gets 30 touches a game. Yeah, he gets that now. But his first couple seasons, he got lucky to get 5 touches a game, honestly.
Yep. Bill, anything stand out to you about mine and Trey's rankings?
I don't know what it is about the fantasy community right now, but they're not believers of Mike Davis, man. I think Atlanta is the number 1 backfield to target for fantasy. And if you look at my rankings, I have both Atlanta running backs ranked significantly higher than both of you guys.
Well, first of all, Javian Hawkins, you have at 48. I believe I have him at 55. So, I mean, it's not that bad. When you're that low, it's 48 and 55 isn't really that big of a difference. But as far as
tier wise, I feel like it is because like the bottom is just kind of who you prefer. I feel like
right. But let's point towards Trey instead, who doesn't have Javian Hawkins ranked at all.
And he wasn't even in my thought. And I did think about you guys because I know you guys have been pumping him up. Rob being a big Falcons fan, and Billy, I know you just like him personally. But I just don't know that much about him. I probably would have thought about him in the 60s, 65, just because I don't know what he's capable of. But he's definitely going to have some opportunity there. But
I don't know, Trey. Look at that backfield, bro. Like that backfield literally right now is like Mike Davis, Javion Hawkins, and everybody else got cut. And Cordell Patterson and everybody else got cut. So like,
do you guys think that he could be James
people are going to play? I don't know. I have no idea what to expect out of Atlanta's backfield, but I'm buying.
I think this year Mike Davis will outscore James Robinson. I'm with the Mike Davis take. It doesn't seem so, but I mean 31. It's more so because I don't know if he's going to be a great long-term asset for Dynasty. But, I mean, we can get into the consensus rankings right now. And let's just start hitting down the list right here. Start with number 1. No surprise, all 3 of us have Christian McCaffrey as the number 1 overall Dynasty back. So, I mean, I don't know if there's much to say about Christian McCaffrey. He was hurt last year, but even when he played, he was fantastic. And the year before, he set records in fantasy football. So, what do you think now is kind of like the best time to buy Christian McCaffrey? Best time to sell? Any thoughts on him?
For me, I think Christian McCaffrey might be the only fantasy player in the league that could be 1.01 one season get completely injured and shit on so many owners, and people would be like, all right, I'm still going to draft him 1.01 because we know that he's still going to get 30 touches a game.
Yeah.
And that's just what you got to expect out of him. And they did bring in Hubbard, Billy's guy, but I think that both of them are going to be pretty deadly. It'll be interesting to see if they use Hubbard, and then maybe they throw McCaffrey in the slaughter. But regardless, McCaffrey will be used. So he's a 1.01. I think he's a tier above everyone else, honestly.
I agree. Bill, anything else to add?
Poor Hubbard, man. What a horrible landing. He's never going to get used unless McCaffrey gets hurt like he did last year, and I don't think that's going to become a thing. But with McCaffrey, I feel like if you're 1-on-1 on the clock, just make the safe pick and just take McCaffrey because the guaranteed weekly floor with him is just like no other in fantasy football, and you just got to pick it every time. And then on top of that, I kind of like the handcuff situation. Last year, I was kind of weary on Mike Davis. He kind of proved to me that he was like fantasy reliable. I would love having Chuba Hubbard as a backup to Christian McCaffrey. Like on one of my teams in that Brisky league, I got McCaffrey and Chuba Hubbard out of the rookie draft, and that's a cool little handcuff. It feels like a little Zeke Elliott, Tony Pollard situation.
I feel that.
I like that.
Definitely. Let's move on here because, don't gotta break down Christian McCaffrey too much. I'll group 2 and 3 together. Saquon Barkley, number 2 technically, and then Dalvin Cook number 3. So this left side number is obviously the number where they are 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. But the average is on the right side. So this is what it actually is when you combine our rankings together and then divide by 3 to see where their average ranking is. So for Saquon here, Billy and I both have him at number 2, the second back. And then the reason that he is not the clear 2 is because Trey has him ranked at number 3. He has Dalvin Cook ranked ahead. Bill and I both have Dalvin Cook at 3. So that changes up the average a little bit, and still Barkley ahead, but not by a significant margin. So let me shoot over to Trey first here on this one. Trey, what was your reasoning behind putting Dalvin Cook ahead of Saquon in these rankings?
Yeah, if it was who's the better running back, I think Barkley would easily be over Cook. But we're playing fantasy football here, and I think that when it comes down to it, Cook will have more touchdowns at the end of the year. He'll probably have more touches and probably more rushing yards than Barkley. Barkley is a really good running back, but the fact that they did bring in Tony, they did bring in Galladay, I think they're going to be trying to make Daniel Jones look pretty good this year. Obviously, they're still going to lean on Barkley. I have him as number 3. He's still going to get his. But we all know that Dalvin Cook is going to get a lot of carries and score most of the touchdowns there for the Vikings. So that's what we got to cover here in fantasy is touchdowns, and I think Cook will easily get to double digits. When Barkley, I'm not quite for sure what his touchdown floor is.
Right. Bill, how about you defend us here in this little difference of opinion here, us Saquon believers, and why you put him ahead of Dalvin Cook in your rankings?
I like Dalvin Cook, but there's still question marks still about just weird things that aren't really fantasy football related, like injuries, like shit that you can't predict, to be honest with you. And when it comes to Saquon, he's coming off an injury, so people, I feel like, kind of forget how good of a prospect that he was coming into the NFL. And I think there's a clear path to him getting targets in this offense. And targets are usually what lands you in the top 5 with your rushing yards. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of with Trey. Dalvin Cook probably does outscore him in touchdowns, but I think through scrimmage yards and catches, I really think he would probably be number 2, pass catching back in the NFL, hands wise.
I feel I agree with that too. I think as far as Saquon goes as well, one other thing to highlight is that he was the number 2 overall pick. So New York, while they're investing in Kenny Galladay, they're investing in Kadarius Toney in the first round. The investment is still there from a few years ago when they spent the second overall pick on Saquon, which was one of the highest picks that any team has ever spent on a running back, especially in the modern era where everyone says running backs don't matter. So, spending the number 2 overall pick on a running back, I think says a lot. And, when Saquon has been healthy, he's gotten a fair workload as well. So maybe the offense is a little worse, but as Billy mentioned, with the hands, the talent of Barkley, I think those two would put him ahead of Cook in my rankings. But that's not to say Cook's not great. Obviously, he's the third running back on our rankings as well. So obviously, I'm also a big fan of Dalvin Cook. Next player to talk about here on our consensus rankings is Jonathan Taylor. He is the average 4.33 because both of you have Jonathan Taylor at number 4 and I have him at number 5. I actually have Alvin Kamara ahead of Jonathan Taylor. Both of you have Alvin Kamara a decent amount lower. I see Trey has him at 6 and Billy has him at 7. So I think, we know what we're on the topic of Jonathan Taylor. We know what we're getting of like how great he was last year. His targets are probably going to come down because Phillip Rivers isn't there anymore. Carson Wentz didn't check down a lot last year to Miles Sanders, but it's a great offensive line in Indianapolis. It's a very good defense that they continue to invest in, and I think they do want to build the offense around Jonathan Taylor. So, I don't think there's much of a discussion on the talent of Jonathan Taylor, the age, all these other things. I guess my question would be, is number 4 too high? But me having him at number 5, I still feel as though it's a good spot for him. So I kind of want to just end it there with Taylor, because if you're playing Dynasty football, Jonathan Taylor is one of the best assets that you can have right now. I think the more important question is Alvin Kamara, because the general consensus over the past few years has been that he's been a fantastic asset, but it seems like that's kind of dropping with both of your rankings a little bit, but I'm still on the initial wave. So let me head to Billy, and your ranking of Alvin Kamara at number 7. What are your thoughts when putting him that low?
This one, I'm actually glad you asked me this one, because this one is one that I kind of thought about pretty deeply when I did my rankings. And I just don't know what the transition from Drew Brees to Jameis Winston / Taysom Hill, whoever starts, means for his PPR viability. Because last year, man, he dropped off completely from different quarterback changes. And if you ever watch Jameis Winston play, my man does not throw check routes. He's either throwing 2 interceptions and then they're throwing back in the game. Like, for the Saints, I want to invest in the cheaper options ADP value-wise. I'm in the Traquan Smiths of the world, the Adam Troutmans of the world and stuff like that. I don't really feel like I want to invest in a Michael Thomas or Alvin Kamara. I'll take Alvin Kamara in the redraft league. I'll probably have my changes of ranking in redrafts. Like Derrick Henry would probably be up there in that top 5 and stuff like that. But when it comes to Dynasty, give me Swift and Akers over him. Not from if I was on the clock, would I make that decision? No, I would probably just pick somebody in the same exact range that was same ADP value wise, maybe get a quarterback or something like that. But overall, man, I don't know how much. I think Alvin Kamara is going to be a good player, but have we seen his ceiling is my only question.
So on Alvin Kamara, one thing I want to highlight here, he's going to turn 26 next month, 2 months from now, which, that can be kind of concerning. But one thing I would like to mention is he's never topped 200 carries in a season because he has always been very reliant on the receiving game. And personally, I don't have any stats to back this up because we really haven't seen great success for Alvin Kamara without Drew Brees. But I feel like this year has to be different because you mentioned Traquan Smith, but it's year 4 for Traquan Smith, who's an undrafted rookie free agent. I feel like if he hasn't put it together yet, at least I'm not going to bet on it happening again. I would say it could happen, but I'd say it's a very low chance of it happening. Number
He
one,
seems like a Jameis Winston type of guy. That's the only reason.
he could be because he is a deep threat, and that Jameis could just launch it downfield. That's the point. But I think the thing I really want to highlight is when you think about established pass catchers in this offense, you have Michael Thomas, and you really have no one else. So you have, I mean, Alvin Kamara, like I said, he's been a mainstay in the passing game for this team for years. So I feel like that, Taysom Hill, when he played last year, he didn't heavily utilize Alvin Kamara in the passing game. And Jameis Winston, when he was playing for the Bucs, he didn't heavily utilize his running backs. But at the same time, I feel like they're going to be forced to, because who else are you going to pass it to? Like Michael Thomas, yes. But besides Michael Thomas, you have the shot you can kind of take with Traquan Smith. You have the shot you can take with Adam Troutman, but it's hard to rely on guys who have not yet established themselves in the league. And Trey, you don't have Alvin Kamara too far down theoretically. He's at 6, which is only 2 spots behind me. But at the same time, it just feels like you hate him at the same time,
I've seen a couple of people have him in the double digits this off season. I think they're just trolling, but everyone has their opinion. But I don't know. I feel like number 6 is a sweet spot. I like Derrick Henry because I feel like Derrick Henry and Kamara, they probably have the same life span left on their shelf. And I'd rather have Taylor just because the youth, and the other 3 is not really a discussion. But that's just my case. I think the people below Kamara that's where the teardrop is for me.
Right. So we can move on from Alvin Kamara. That's our top 5 in our consensus: Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Dalvin Cook, Jonathan Taylor, Alvin Kamara. On to number 6, Ezekiel Elliott. You said there's a bit of a drop-off, and the average kind of shows that a little bit here too, because Alvin Kamara average is 5.66, and then Zeke's is 7.33. So that is a slight drop-off. I have Zeke at 6 still. Bill has him at 8. And Trey, you also have him at 8. So it seems you guys are a little more tempered on him. Again, I believe he's going to be turning 25 before the season starts. Or I'm sorry, 26 before the season starts. So similar to Kamara. But he is a back with a lot more tread on his tires. I think I'm just more invested. Number one, I believe Zeke can be the long-term successful running back, especially with the commitment that Dallas has to him. He's kind of gotten, you can watch him play and you see he's not the same player he was when he was first in the league, but he's also adjusting and becoming a different player himself. And like I said, if you can watch him and see that, then I think that says a decent amount about how he's trying to lengthen his game time span, I would say, or his shelf life, as you were saying, Trey. But last year, I mean, everyone says this, but last year with Dak, he was the running back 3. And after that, yes, he lost a step and it was visible on the field. But I feel like anyone in that offense with as much turmoil as it had, when we were switching back and forth between Andy Dalton and Ben DiNucci and other unspeakable names, I feel like anyone would have had turmoil at that point. So, Trey, maybe you're a bit more tempered on Zeke than me, but what are you thinking here with him ranking at 8 for you?
Yeah, and I think that's we're just waiting and see. I think with that coming back, that's honestly going to help him. Obviously, I think he's going to be a RB1. A lot of people are still down on him, but I think he's going to be an RB1. 8 is pretty comfortable for me. I don't see him I mean, he's never been a really good receiving back, especially with them having now CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper. He's definitely not going to get very many targets. So we just got to hope he gets those rushing touchdowns, which he's always gotten. But if he doesn't get those, then I don't really see him being an RB1. But I think he's easily going to get those double-digit touchdowns with Dak and those weapons around him.
Right. Beyond Ezekiel Elliott is Nick Chubb, who is very close behind. Zeke's average is 7.33. Chubb's is 7.66. Trey has Chubb one spot ahead of Zeke. Bill has Chubb one spot behind Zeke, and I also have Chubb one spot behind Zeke. So I feel like this is a good discussion to have between Nick Chubb and Ezekiel Elliott. The age, I believe, Chubb is about the same age as them. I think he came into the league a little older at the running back position. His birthday is this year still, so I'll count him as about the same age, both turning 26 this year. So I think Chubb versus Zeke is a good question, and I'll point over to Billy first here, who's on the Zeke side in that argument. Bill, what are your thoughts there between comparing Ezekiel Elliott and Nick Chubb?
The Cowboys defense is so bad that anybody in the Cowboys offense has the chance to be at the top end for fantasy scoring. I think Zeke would be ranked higher if this was a redraft ranking. Dynasty wise, I don't know if I want former years of Ezekiel Elliott. I kind of like his counterpart in the other backfield, Tony Pollard for way cheaper of a price. And I think Tony Pollard has standalone value within himself, but that's a story for another day. To be honest with you, I do like Zeke more than Chubb. The only thing that I kind of don't like about Chubb is like Cleveland games are kind of sketchy in the middle of the season and stuff like that. Like we saw last year, they're in some really bad weather games and just really low scoring games. Dallas Cowboys dome team, NFC team leads to a little bit more scoring and better point projection wise. But I think Chubb is more talented back to Zeke.
I feel that. I could definitely understand that. Trey, you're on the opposite side of this. You want to talk about Chubb over Zeke?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think Zeke's going to have more touches just because Chubb does have Hunt there with him. But I just know what we're going to get with Chubb, even with Hunt being there. We've seen them continually feed Chubb. Their offense is exactly like the Vikings, and you could probably just say that because their head coach was a former offensive coordinator with the Vikings, but their offense runs through their running game. Dallas used to be like that. I'm not sure they're like that now with Dak Prescott dropping back and passing 40 times a game. But with Chubb, with Chubb, you know he's gonna get that floor every week. You don't have to worry about him putting up those duds like we saw Zeke Elliott put up last year. With Chubb, he's pretty consistent with him at least going to get you to double-digit points.
Definitely feel that. All right, moving on here. We'll talk about our consensus RB8. It's going to be Derrick Henry.
Trey was young guys behind him. He's the grandpa of the group.
Trey was talking about the Derrick Henry slander per se. He has Derrick Henry at RB5 in Dynasty right now. Meanwhile, Billy has him at RB14. No, I'm sorry, 15 in Dynasty right now. So, I'm in the middle there at RB8. Closer to RB5 than RB15, by the way. So, I think this is an argument for the two of you. Trey, why should Billy move Derrick Henry up in the ranks?
Dude, I had to really hold back from yelling at this guy on my Twitter line. I mean, I like him. He posts a lot of good content, so I'm not going to say to not go look at his content because the stuff he says, I mean, it is good to see the other side. It's always good to see the other side of what people are thinking. But every time I see people say, sell Derrick Henry, that's the only time I ever see people saying, oh, he's too old, sell him. But I don't quite understand. I'm just going to go on a tangent right here. If everyone's saying sell somebody, isn't that the right time to buy somebody? Because at the same time, if everyone's saying sell, you're not going to get anything for Derrick Henry right now. You're not going to get anything for Alvin Kamara. You're not going to get anything for Ezekiel Elliott right now. Aaron Jones, you could get a trash can for him right now. wait until week 1. Never sell a vet during the offseason. You're going to get half of what he's worth. Sorry, I had to go on a tangent because people were saying sell Derrick Henry. It makes me so mad. But no, Derrick Henry, you know what he's going to get. I could easily see why people are low on him because he does have a lot of tread on the tires, and they're saying, look at the past. The past is easily going to repeat itself. Same thing happened to DeMarco Murray. Same thing happened to a lot of running backs that got those heavy carries. They just fell off that cliff, but none of them were like Derrick Henry or as big as Derrick Henry. Or I have the story of Derrick Henry of he didn't quite get those 20, 30 touches a game straight out of college. So he really got to learn how to build up his body and take those hits. And I think he's going to be around for a couple more years. I'm going to say at least 2 more years as our top 5 RB. And I'll take that. Obviously, the drop's coming. It's probably going to happen in 3 or 4 years, in my opinion, but I'll ride him out until then.
Bill, your rebuttal for having him so low?
There's no rebuttal. I mean, I like Derrick Henry, but it just feels easier to stack the passing offensive side of the Titans. I'm kind of more intrigued by the pass catchers. You can get A.J. Brown at a pretty suppressed value. I think A.J. Brown is this year's Devontae Adams, basically, like a good breakout player. I think he should be ranked in the top 5, like production-wise.
So I can get A.J. Brown from your roster at a surprisingly cheap price right now?
Nah, you can't at all. And then I feel like on the other side, you can get like the cheaper pass catchers. Like I feel like the way I'm picking fantasy teams this year is drafting AJ Brown and Anthony Ferkser on a lot of teams. Like I feel like you get Ferkser dirt cheap. I seen somebody in my home league, bro, after the rookie draft, drop him to the waivers. He's gonna be like a steady tight end. Think of him like Delaney Walker. I want Ryan Tannehill. I don't mind Derrick Henry because obviously if I'm buying the pass catchers, I think this offense is in the right direction. And I do like Derrick Henry, better redraft player than dynasty player, to be honest with you.
Definitely. All right. If you say so, I'll stick with that. All right. Let's move on here. Derrick Henry, number 8, number 9, right on his tail. Cam Akers, running back for the Los Angeles Rams. In this situation, I guess you could say I'm the hater because I have him the lowest at 13. Bill has him at 6, and Trey has him at 10. The only reason I have him so low is just because we haven't seen it quite yet. So I'd rather take other guys where we have seen it from them.
That's weird. You used to be the Cam Akers lover.
I know. Well, last year, all right, so last year coming in, I feel it. Like, I still feel it in my heart. I do still love Cam Akers, but I'm just not there with putting him so high in those rankings. But, I mean, last year I talked a lot about vacated carries out of the backfield, the opportunity that Cam Akers was stepping into, and then immediately you saw, I believe he got hurt early in the year, which held him back a little bit.
Yes.
And then Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown started off. Malcolm Brown's gone now, so Darrell Henderson's still there. But then later on in the year, you saw Cam Akers start to take over. You get the quarterback upgrade in Matthew Stafford. I get the argument in favor of Cam Akers. But for me personally, would I rather have Cam Akers or would I rather have even just Aaron Jones, like a guy who just got a 4-year deal? He's on, hopefully, a great offense with Aaron Rodgers. I'm hoping Rodgers is still there. Obviously, should he leave, that changes my opinion on Aaron Jones. He would fall. But as long as Rodgers is there, I still love Aaron Jones as a top 12 back. I'd rather have what I know in Aaron Jones. Antonio Gibson. We saw a lot out of Antonio Gibson last season, and he looked great in his role in Washington. I feel like he's ready to take the step up. I would personally prefer to have him over Cam Akers, even though the offense overall, I believe, is a downgrade because I've seen it out of Antonio Gibson on a more consistent basis. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is another big one where I have him ahead of Akers, and that's a really good one. Good discussion to have. there. But I believe the investment into Hilaire means that Hilaire is definitely going to be the guy. I mean, one of the big things I did preseason last year was looking at Trey, you may remember this, but I did an article for the Fantasy Forecast on Clyde Edwards-Helaire versus what's his name, Brian Westbrook, who they compared Clyde to, at the draft basically. So, they did that comparison. I compared the rookie season of Brian Westbrook with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Brian Westbrook's rookie season wasn't anything to be excited about. But Clyde's also kind of wasn't, and injuries also let him to be a bit more of a disappointment. But I think long term, the Chiefs' offense is just something you can bet on with Pat Mahomes, and I'm still willing to invest in Clyde. So just different reasons. And Clyde wasn't bad last year. Clyde had a few bad breaks, only scored 4 touchdowns, I think. But he still got a lot of touches, and I feel like things are going to bounce back his way. So, like I said, I'm more on the side of I've seen it on the field from these other guys more consistently, so I'm willing to bet on that. I definitely understand the argument in favor of Cam Akers' upside, and I know he can hit it. He can be the next Todd Gurley, but it's hard for me to buy in now pre-seeing it, Bill, you have him the highest. Is there anything you want to mention on Cam Akers?
I think it's just a talent thing. I think he's talented. I think he's in a pretty good offense. I like Matthew Stafford a little bit more than Jared Goff for this offense for the Rams. And Sean McVay just runs the football a lot, to be honest with you. The only thing that would concern me would be Sean McVay out of all things, because I don't know, we just see the highlights on Red Zone, or if you watch the games, if you live in California. We don't know what the fuck he's saying in the sidelines or behind the locker room, because he just doesn't like the guy. He just doesn't play him, dude. Remember last year, I think it was against the Jets, he was chalk, and everybody started him in fantasy leagues, and he just didn't play the second half. But they won the game by 25. It's kind of weird. Those are the type of things you can't really predict in fantasy. You just kind of have to put your chips on where you think the production is going to come from. And I feel like we're going to see a lot of production out of Cam Akers this year.
Trey, I know you have to go back to work, sadly. Is there any... What's that?
R.I.P. to my soul.
Is there any, conversation you want to have before you go? Anything that stands out to you, and anything you would like to mention?
I liked Billy. You pointed out in the chat, but it's nice to see them back it up. And I think Myles Gaskins is definitely gonna. He's definitely gonna be an RB2 or at least a flex this year if they don't bring anybody in. But until Le'Veon Bell or Todd Gurley retires or signs somewhere else, I'm always just gonna be worried that one of them's gonna go there, just because the warm weather, Miami, blah blah blah. I also like that you guys somewhat respected Melvin Gordon. A lot of people don't respect him, but at least you guys respectfully, at least Rob did, put him somewhat high.
Trey, really quick, the one thing I want to mention against you is your hate on Joe Mixon, because last year in his injury, and I feel like all of Dynasty Twitter is against Joe Mixon at the moment. You ranking him at 18. I feel like you're doing just that as well.
He definitely would have been a high-end RB2 if they drafted Penei Sewell, but they didn't. I guess it will sort of help him that Jamar Chase is there, because he'll have another weapon in that offense, but that just means less opportunity for him. But, Joe Mixon's going to be serviceable. I think he's going to be an RB2. I just like everyone else I put above him a little bit more than him. From about 12 to 18, I could see that being pretty serviceable, pretty changeable. But Joe Mixon just hasn't proved it over the past 2 years, so I'm just going to keep him where he's at.
I will mention Gio Bernard is gone. So no clear handcuff for Joe Mixon to come in and take passing down work away from him now. So
They got Puka.
yeah, but no clear veteran on the roster who's really gonna. You got Samaje Perine. Yeah, that's about it.
He was in Oklahoma. He ran for like 500 yards against KU. All right.
He did. Yeah, what was that? 20 years ago.
Yeah.
At this point,
Honestly, he looks like he's 40.
if you ever Google Samaje Perine, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. Trey at FF Superflex Guru. Enjoy the rest of your day at work. Thanks for coming and spending your lunch with us.
Yeah,
You try.
Hey, you guys have a good rest of the episode. Thanks for all who listened. Make sure to subscribe. Fantasy Force Podcast on YouTube. Peace out, guys.
Thanks. Let's round out the episode over the next 10, 15 minutes or so. Bill, any other points we're going to talk about here? We talked about Cam Akers at 9. We could also talk about DeAndre Swift, who Trey, I believe, has him at 9, who's a bit, I'm not going to say rational, but I'm going to say higher towards your side of having him at 5. And I have him at 16. So that's debate worthy there on the topic of DeAndre Swift. Is there any, specific reason why you're buying DeAndre Swift so highly at the moment?
Just in Dynasty, I kind of bet on talent over situation because situation can change very easily. And I just think that DeAndre Swift is just going to be a superstar. I don't know, man. I just think it's easier.
I agree with you. He's very, very talented.
It's easier to buy a younger player. It's weird because in most times in fantasy, you kind of want to see it first. But in Dynasty, with the running back position, you want the people in their first contract because once you see it, that's probably going to be their best season ever. Running backs really don't last that long. They're not like wide receivers. Receivers, I kind of want to pick the same exact people that catch the ball every year. Running back wise, that shit kind of really changes a lot. Yeah. And I just feel like Swift, we just haven't seen the DeAndre Swift season yet. And if you have him on a 3 to 4 year, even if you're competing for a team or if you're rebuilding, he's going to be a high value asset.
Agreed. I understand. And, I feel like I agree with you in a sense. He's definitely super talented, and I agree with that. But I also agree more so with certain situations do not change as easily as others do. Yes, they can change very quickly, but I think certain situations, a la Detroit, and how they have been for years and years, they don't necessarily change very often, very quickly.
Can I give you a caveat on that?
Sure.
Kenny Galladay leaving kind of really opens up a huge target share for 2 people in that offense that have significantly boosted up my rankings. One being DeAndre Swift, and when we get into the tight end rankings, dude, TJ Hawkinson, dude, that's a shitload of targets that is vacated on that team, and I don't really see I see the rookie picking it up, but you know how fantasy goes. It kind of gets split into a pie, and then 2 people kind of get prioritized. And I think that Swift has the ability to get those Christian McCaffrey type catches.
Yeah, I agree.
And they're gonna suck, bro. And they're gonna suck.
They are
gonna
suck.
Imagine DeAndre Swift on the field getting 15 touches and they're down by 21. He's gonna be James Robinson.
Yeah. The point I'm going to make against DeAndre Swift is that I can see the Detroit Lions staying on this path for the next few years because that's how long Jared Goff is signed for. And the fact is, it could be hard to kind of step away from that contract. They could just be starting to rebuild from within and out, and then ending with the quarterback position, create a good situation for a new quarterback to step into, and then, bring the quarterback in like when they drafted Penei Sewell at 7, when Justin Fields was on the board. If they really wanted to start all the way over at quarterback already right now, then they would have drafted Justin Fields. But no, they want to create a good situation for a quarterback to be in and then bring the quarterback in, which is how you should run a football team. But the problem is that that's going to take time. And you mentioned it yourself, running backs don't last very long. So we could be looking 2 years down the road. Okay, DeAndre Swift, he's finally in a great situation with a good young quarterback. He's finally hitting. And then all of a sudden, DeAndre Swift is 27 years old and everyone's telling you to sell. So, you know, how it depends on these next few years, I think, for Swift, how he can be good in that I believe he can be good in that offense with Jared Goff and with the lack of pass catching weapons around him. But it's hard to bet on. Like I said, it's with the Cam Akers situation, it's hard to bet on. I saw it last year with DeAndre Swift, but that was still a different situation. They had Marvin Jones, they had a better quarterback in Matthew Stafford. So this year it could be different. And like I said, long term, it's hard to bet on when I know they're in a rebuilding state. So that's just where I'm at the moment on Swift. We can move on from here because we got a few. Episode.
Can I highlight one?
Yes, sir.
I thought that really stood out to me compared to everybody else's ranking. I know you asked me that question, but I wanted to wait later until we get into a little bit of the rankings and we can kind of talk about some guys in the same exact range. Zach Moss of the Buffalo Bills. I think he was one of the winners of the draft. The Bills didn't really draft anybody. They didn't really sign anybody from free agency. I really don't think Devin Singletary is a bell cow type of back. And I feel like Zach Moss is a guy that we should be buying in on our fantasy teams after we buy some receivers and startup drafts, or maybe getting him as a throw-in trade in a dynasty draft that you already drafted in. Because I think Zach Moss is going to be really good this year for fantasy, for redraft leagues.
Interesting. So you have him at 27. For reference, you have Singletary at 45. I also have Singletary at 45, and then I have Moss at 46. And then Trey has Singletary at, where is it? I know, I just saw it. Singletary at 38, and then Moss at 39. But Moss, because I think specifically because of your 27 ranking, Moss is he's up here a little bit more at 36 over the 36th overall back, tied with Gus Edwards, and then Singletary a little further down there. My thing is, I don't believe either Zach Moss or Devin Singletary is the answer for this year. What we saw last year was complete inefficiency from both of them at the running back position. And I'm very surprised that Buffalo didn't invest it at the running back position.
Me too.
But at the same time, you think about the capital that they have invested in running back in the past few years. I believe Moss was a 3rd-round pick. He might have been a 2nd-round pick last year. And then the year before, Singletary was a 3rd-round pick. So the fact is, the fact that they have invested a decent amount of capital in these two backs, yes, neither of them have panned out, at least to this point. But it's hard to continue to invest in running back for neither of them to pan out. I just feel like the best running back on that roster is Josh Allen. And
I agree with you, but Josh Allen can't keep on running like this. And I feel like it's an investment into the cheapest part of the offense, I feel like.
I agree with you. That Zach Moss is going to be cheap because no one wants Zach Moss right now.
Nobody wants him. Him and Damian Harris, I feel like, back-to-back in my rankings. And Chase Edmonds kind of too. Like those the 4 guys that I have like ranked right there make a pretty good argument of just like people that might be good buy low windows. Like I think Damian Harris this year has a legit chance of like maybe leading the way for the Patriots. It's like a weird little conglomerate of players right there because you can make arguments against him. Do I think Zach Moss is fucking blowing out the field? No. But do I think that offense is going to be in a lot of scoring situations? Yeah. Is it going to be annoying seeing Josh Allen run inside the end zone? Yeah, but I think ADP value wise, makes the most sense out of all the Buffalo guys. I don't think I'm getting Stephon Diggs on my team. I don't think I'm getting Josh Allen on a lot of my teams. I will try to get Josh Allen on my teams, but I think realistically, when you look at the Buffalo offense, the guy I want is Zach Moss if you count in ADP. How about you? Who is the guy that you would want ADP considering for the Buffalo Bills? Because it's definitely going to be a top 5 offense.
It will be. I mean, depending on my draft selection, if I'm there in the late first, I wouldn't mind investing in Stephon Diggs. But I'm probably not going to have a ton of him on my team because if I'm late in the first, I like to try and double up at running back at the same time. And so, I like to say I'll draft Stephon Diggs, but then it comes time to it because you can get such great running backs in the 3rd and 4th round and 5th round or great wide receivers. I mean, in those rounds. So what's the point in spending such an early pick on a great wide receiver when you can get an equally great, maybe better wide receiver later on? So that's one example. But as far as, I can tell you personally, I just wouldn't draft Zach Moss. Like, I've never been, and this because, we've been friends for a while and we've been looking into running backs and rookies for a while, but I've never been in on the talent of Zach Moss. I know that pre-draft you had him in your top 5. I believe it was last year. You had him in your top 5 initially, or he was like 6th or something like that. But for me,
I wasn't too high on Zach Moss. I feel like how you feel about AJ Dillon's how I feel about Zach Moss.
Interesting. Which is, I personally feel like AJ Dillon's got value, even though he's not someone that you're really going to go and sell the house out for because you believe he's going to take over. But he is on a good offense. He's going to be used.
Value.
Yeah, and he's got value. So, let me see. Is there anything? I think I want to highlight Trey Sermon here because Trey Sermon, you have him at 33. I thought we were in on this together. You have Trey Sermon at 33. Trey has him at 32. I have him up here at 26 instead, because it's the San Francisco offense, and they don't invest at the running back position, but they did for once. In the 3rd round, they drafted Trey Sermon. The question will be whether he can stay healthy or not, but when he was on the field at Ohio State, he was great, and I'm willing to believe that when he's on the field for the 49ers in that offense, he's going to be great again. So I don't see how he's not like a really valuable fantasy asset at this point. What are your thoughts? Why are you hating on him?
I think that overall this rookie class, besides ETN and Harris, is being overvalued running back wise. I feel like Trey Sermon landed in a good spot, so he moved up my rankings, but I don't want the non-depth of the running back rookie class to really affect my overall opinion of the landscape of the field. I feel like rookie wise, he's ranked in my top 5 for running backs. I think that was a great spot.
Yeah.
But when it comes to I'd rather have Kareem Hunt than Trey Sermon, and that's like a hot take, but not a hot take because I think Trey Sermon has the opportunity to be what we want a San Francisco 49er running back to be in a Shanahan offense, but I just don't know if we're going to ever see it. It's just a weird offense that always uses 2 backs. And I think each year the right answer is drafting the cheapest one. And the cheapest one this year that I'm going to draft is probably going to be Jeff Wilson in a lot of spots.
I don't know, because at the same time, Raheem Mostert's value has come down a lot because of the Trey Sermon pick. So he's another cheap one that you can invest in at the same time. I'm going to quickly run through our consensus rankings for those listening on the pod over the next few minutes. And if there's any other question you want to throw at me, Billy, you can feel free to do that afterwards. So we left off, I believe, with DeAndre Swift at number 10, 11, Aaron Jones, 12, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. 13, J.K. Dobbins, tied with Joe Mixon, so they're both 13. Tie at 15 again, Antonio Gibson, Austin Eckler. Najee Harris there at 17, then Travis Etienne at 18, 19, Miles Sanders, 20, David Montgomery, 21, Josh Jacobs, 22, Chris Carson, 23, Myles Gaskin, 24, Javonte Williams, 25, Kareem Hunt, 26, Chase Edmonds, 27, Mike Davis, 28, Melvin Gordon, 29, Trey Sermon, 30, James Robinson, 31, A.J. Dillon, 31, a tie with A.J. Dillon is Michael Carter, 33, Ronald Jones, 34, David Johnson, 35, Raheem Mostert, 36, Gus Edwards, tied with Zach Moss, and I'll just kind of round it out there. We have Bill mentioned Damian Harris. He's down there at 41. Javian Hawkins was not ranked by Trey, sadly, but Bill had him at 48. I had him at 55, as I mentioned earlier. Bill, you didn't have Tevin Coleman ranked, or what's his name? LaMichael Pirine. So, I also had them ranked. Trey is out here slandering Tony Pollard out here at 47.
Can we stop right there?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, who's your favorite two handcuffs this year? I'll start mine off. I think I talked about it on my Twitter and a little bit earlier. I think Gus Edwards could be one of the most fantasy valuable running backs by the end of the season if J.K. Dobbins misses any time. I think Gus Edwards is definitely a buy in my books for redraft and Dynasty. Just off chance, let J.K. Dobbins miss any times. We've seen things happen at the running back position. And then my number one buy is Tony Pollard, dog. I think he's a standalone value. And let Zeke, Zeke's on that second contract, running backs on the second contract, even though he's a popular name. History repeats itself, and it ain't good history.
I feel that.
And
I feel that.
You can scoop up Tony Pollard. I think Tony Pollard is more valuable in the Dynasty League than a redraft league.
Let me give you 4 names, but they're all going to be a little kind of deeper. And I don't know if any of you had any of them ranked, but actually, I think a few of you did. So let me start here. Number 1, obviously, you mentioned A.J. Dillon earlier. I don't know if he was my number 1, but like I said, A.J. Dillon, I think, is someone who, yes, he's the backup to Aaron Jones, but I think he's going to have work for him in that offense. Number 2, Philip Lindsay. I don't know why I put him for Denver here, but he is on Houston. So, technically he's a backup to David Johnson, but David Johnson is really old, and David Johnson is not, the healthiest player in the National Football League at the same time. It's gonna look
Davis Mills, man. I'm on that Davis Mills fan, dog. He's still going in like the late third and fourth rounds of
rookie drafts,
Dynasty rookie drafts. And I know you're a Tyrod guy, but homie's about to start.
It's Davis Mills. I traded Tyrod earlier for a 4th-round pick because I got that offer, And I mean, I don't think a 4th-round pick has much value, but I don't think Tyrod has much value either. So I'm willing to take that shot.
Late-round picks, bro, because if you can land on a quarterback in the 4th round of a rookie draft that starts,
that's a hit.
That's a hit.
Yeah. I think Philip Lindsay, though, he could get a shot in Houston because
Mark Ingram's
the situation. Yeah, but he's in the same boat as David Johnson, where they're both very old. They're obviously neither of them are the future of that team. They're both on 1-year deals. Like the situation that Houston is in, they may just start evaluating what they have on the roster. And Philip Lindsay is on the roster. Maybe they finally start giving him some work, and then they say, "Oh, well, we could re-sign him for somewhat cheap, and then we have a running back of the future." So I think he could get an opportunity. And then I think I mentioned 2 more that I wanted to mention.
I would say one thing, though. The Texans' offense is not something that I want to.
It's not, no. I will say that. It's not great. And it's not especially if Watson's not there. If he's there, then
if he's there, different story.
different
Everybody's
story.
back.
Right. I lied. I don't think I wanted to mention A.J. Dillon. I think I wanted to mention Kenny Gainwell, Philadelphia. Miles Sanders, really not the best pass catcher last year, even when he did get the opportunity from Carson Wentz. This year, that could very well change. Kenny Gainwell was arguably the best pass catcher in this draft, and that's in a draft with Travis Etienne. I know it's a 5th-round pick, so it's not, a heavy investment, but we'll have to see how training camp goes for Philly and their running backs and how they're really evaluating Kenny Gainwell and seeing if he's really getting on the field that much. And then 2 more that I want to mention. Jamal Williams for Detroit. I feel like he's going to be in a similar situation as Green Bay. It's going to be a worse offense, yes, but I mean, if you're desperate at running back, you're desperate at running back. You feel me? And then Darrell Williams for Kansas City, just for the shot, I mean, I believe in Clyde, but I know a lot of people don't. So if you don't believe in Clyde, then Darrell Williams would be the best running back on the roster at that point. So why would you not take the shot on him? He's been relevant when he's had that job in the past. So, if you want to check out our YouTube, you can check out the full, we go through probably more than 55, because there are some people that you guys ranked that I didn't, some guys that I ranked that you didn't, things like that. So if you want to check that out, you can check it out on YouTube, Dynasty Force Podcast. You can see us on Twitter as well, at Dynasty Force Pod. And very, very nice episode there where we break down the running backs. Bill, at Getting Bills on Twitter. Anything you want to mention before we get out of here?
If you would like to join the Pub Sports Radio Discord, make sure you hit me up on Twitter at Getting Bills. It's a nice community where we all share our different bets, have conversations, live watch games together. Everybody needs an extra friend in this world.
I appreciate that, Billy. I would love to be your friend. Me at Fantasy Force FB, and not much going on, real life things out here. But in the meantime, you can catch me there if you ever have any questions, or you could catch us all at the Dynasty Force Pod, at Dynasty Force Pod, I should say, on Twitter. Next week, we have wide receivers, so stay tuned, because it's going to be a great episode, just like today was. Thank you again for tuning into the Dynasty Force Podcast. We will catch you next time. Enjoy your